Hey everyone, before we jump into today's episode, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, Open Water. As a chef and restaurant owner, I know how important it is not only to serve amazing food, but also take care of our planet. Open Water makes that easy with their eco-friendly bottled water packaged in 100% recyclable aluminum bottles, helping to reduce the plastic waste. What's even cooler? Open Water is a female-owned company leading the way in sustainability, something we can all get behind. And here's the best part. They're giving our listeners 20% off. Just use promo code INTHEWEEDS at checkout. So whether you're hydrating your team or stocking up for your restaurant, make the switch to Open Water. Delicious water, a healthier planet, and great discount. Cheers to that. All right, I'd like to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Saltwerk. You can check them out at saltwerk.com. You ever wonder what a pinch of Iceland would taste like? Well, you have it now in the most sustainable, flaky sea salt in the world. I've actually traveled to Iceland. Their geothermal powered island is beautiful. There's just a sense of freshness in the air over there, and it translates to this salt. I love this salt. It's delicious. It's the most sustainable. Again, you can buy just the normal flaky sea salt, but they also have infused salts, which I've been using at home lately a lot. They have this birch smoked sea salt that I love using with seafood. They have the lava salt, which is super black and cool looking. It's got a certain different type of taste to it. They have the Arctic thyme salt, which I use for my pickling liquids. And again, guys, just don't think of salt as something to season post recipe. You can use all these salts in the recipe alone. At We The Pizza, we use their flaky sea salt in our dough preparation. And they have this seaweed salt that I just used at an event that I loved at the Indy 500. I made a plant-based crab cake, and I was looking for a little bit more of that ocean flavor. Guess what I used? Saltwerk's seaweed salt. Gave me just that ocean flavor that I needed for my plant-based crab cake. It was a hit. Guys, if you want to use my promo code, you can. It's at In The Weeds Pod. You can use it on their website. You'll get a 20% discount on all their items. Stock up. This salt is amazing. And again, it is powered 100% by geothermal energy, the most sustainable sea salt on the market. You're welcome. Get yours. No Salt Bay in the house, just Saltwerk. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the In the Weeds podcast, where we dive deep into the craziness of the restaurant industry and so much more. We discuss food, beverage, even food policy issues. Basically, if you love to eat and drink and are curious about this industry, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Spike Mendelsohn, a recovering celebrity chef, a long life restaurant rat, from washing dishes in my family's business to cooking at Michelin star restaurants, competing in reality cooking competitions, and serving as an advocate for food policy issues. My life is always in the weeds. We're broadcasting live from the District of Columbia, our nation's capital. On today's episode, bendecido de estar acompañado por la increíble Chef Daniella Senior, founder and CEO of Colada Shop, Serenata, Zumo, and Spritz. She embodies a well-known Cuban proverb, dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. It translates, tell me who you walk with, and I'll tell you who you are. While I am more of an espresso yourself with a colada type of guy, welcome, Danielle. How you doing?
Great. I'm just laughing over here. That was pretty hilarious.
It's pretty hilarious. My Spanish.
Yeah. We'll work on that.
We'll have to work on it. I mean, I've got that kitchen Spanish in me, but that's about it.
It got you far, so.
It's funny. I'm doing Spanish homework with my son these days, and I never realized how bad my conjugations and verbs are. I'm just.
I am a native Spanish speaker, and they're pretty bad for me myself. So don't worry.
Yeah, all right, good. You're making me feel a little bit better there. This morning I stopped by the shop in Clarendon, and I had a nice colada, so I'm all jacked up, ready to go right now. Those things are strong.
They are.
Where do you get the coffee bean from?
We actually roast our own beans. So,
okay.
Yeah. So it varies by the year and by the crop, but most of our beans are coming from South America. So
okay.
Currently, We have a little bit of Colombia in there, Guatemala, but it does vary. We want to keep the flavor profile the same. So depending, it's coffees like any other crop. The flavor varies. So we're trying to get that blend, our signature colada blend, every time. So it shifts a little bit.
Yeah, and I pumped a lot of sugar in it as well. How do you take your colada?
I do half sweet. So you did Miami?
I did Miami.
Okay, so that is pretty sweet. But I would actually say that our Miami sweet is still not even close to when you actually go to Miami. And to me, that's just rocket fuel. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Did you live in Miami for a little bit?
I didn't live in Miami, but I would travel a lot to Miami. As a kid, I had a lot of family in Miami, so I was there at least 2-3 times a year for like extended periods of time. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time in Miami.
I did a couple years there. I mean, I was dating this girl there. I got an apartment. I did all the things you don't want to do.
Miami's trouble.
It's trouble. I was dating a model, and first and last, and then I got an apartment. She hustled me to get an apartment down there. I got an apartment down there, and I was living the Miami Vice lifestyle for a little bit. It was fun. Yeah. It was fun, and my favorite. I think it's a Cuban shop. My favorite Cuban shop was on First Avenue. Do you know which one I'm talking about? It's right there on the corner. It's got like a blue awning. It's got a window. You walk up to it.
Enriqueta's maybe?
I don't know. There's a couple really good. What are the top? Do you remember the top 3 places that you go to there?
Yeah, well, I have my favorite. It might not be like the favorite of everyone in Miami. You definitely have institutions, obviously, like Versailles, like Arreta, Enriqueta's, but I respect them, but I like the more modern approach to Cuban food, where like the quality of the ingredients are
a little bit better. Yeah. No, I'm down with that. I mean, I used to get this colada all the time, the super sweet one. They give you. Do you give little cups too? With
we do.
Yeah, you have to request them or something like that.
Yeah, we most people are like, "Why are you giving me this here?" They
don't understand it.
Exactly, but we do have them. So yeah.
Because it's a social thing, right? Like you order one big boy, right, colada, and you're supposed to share with everybody. Is that how it goes?
So you don't have the jiggers that you have now. Yeah, you're supposed to share it, and that's actually where our name comes from, right? Most people think it's from Piña Colada, and it's actually, for me, the approach of coffee and meaning like such a, I don't know, cultural, beautiful experience, like slow down for a second and share it. And I really love the culture behind that colada. It's like, you're in Miami and, basically anywhere in the afternoon or mid-morning, someone shows up with the little cups and a few coladas and you share, right? Yeah. So to me, it's kind of that approach of sharing your coffee.
Americans aren't used to sharing.
No, they're
I could say that because I'm Canadian, and they think it's came from Piña Colada. Yeah. I mean, come on. What are we doing? What are we doing here?
We also serve that, so that's okay. So I'm fine guiding you that way as well. But that, like, our namesake is coming from the colada coffee.
Yeah. Let's get into your background a little bit because you have a very extensive background. We haven't interacted too much, although you've known my sister for quite a bit.
I have, yes.
Yeah. I did see you just recently at Jose Andres' rooftop Kamala Harris situation, I think, right?
Yeah, we're doing a fundraiser.
What was going on there? A fundraiser.
Yeah, we were doing a fundraiser.
That was a cool moment.
It was a wonderful moment.
So where are you from?
I was born and raised in Dominican Republic.
Okay.
My grandmother on my dad's side is from Cuban heritage, so kind of that connection there.
So half Cuban?
A quarter, I guess.
A quarter Cuban.
A quarter,
yeah. Okay.
A quarter Cuban, and then, so that's where I grew up. I moved to the States when I was 18.
So wait a second. You lived in the Dominican until you were 18 years old.
Yeah.
Oh, through your teens.
Yeah, I grew up there.
Yeah. And what was that like? Like what was like your did you have a lot of food inspirations at a young age there through your family?
I started. Well, I used to cook at a very young age with my grandmother. My mom honestly cooked very little. And my dad 0. But I actually started cooking when I was 11 because my grandmother got sick and my mom had actually came to the States with her to get treatment. And my dad was like feeding me sandwiches nonstop, and I'm like, this gotta stop. I'm hungry. I'm like, this is not working for me. And I literally started just cooking, and I really fell in love with it. You know, DR is very big into baseball. I have a big family. My uncles would come usually on Sundays, watch baseball. So then I started kind of doing the spread. And it became this thing. I was like very proud of the spread. And
what was in the spread?
It would change. It was themed.
It was themed?
Yeah, it was themed. So, you know, I would...
So wait. So your mother was going through treatment. So is
no, my grandmother. So my mom
was it cancer or something like that?
She had cancer.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm sorry to hear that. My wife is going through the same thing just now, actually, right now. So it's a tough disease to go through. So you felt like so she was traveling to the United States.
Correct.
To get treatments.
Mm-hmm. So my mom was away.
So no more real cooking. It was happening.
No, it was like my dad is like, okay, here's a sandwich, let's go. I'm like, okay, we need to eat something else here. Like,
you need sustenance.
Yeah, exactly. So then I don't laugh, but the first thing I remember like cooking, besides again cooking with my grandmother, probably was like a hamburger helper. But that was the first thing.
That's it. You got to start somewhere.
You know?
Listen, no shame on the hamburger helper.
It turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
And then, you know, but I was like, oh, this is cool. And I don't know, I really love like the peace that cooking gave me. And I started grabbing all these books that, despite no one cooking really in my house, we had a lot of cooking books. But
the irony. It's like I grew up with a piano. No one plays the piano in my house, unfortunately.
So like there's like every edition of that. You remember like the gourmet books?
Oh,
like
of course. Do I remember?
Like every edition for whatever.
I love those books.
Yeah. So I started really like taking a lot of inspiration. Then I was watching a lot of cooking shows. Actually, one of my favorite shows growing up was Vamos a Cocinar with Jose.
Vamos a Cocinar con Jose Andres. Yeah. So what was that on PBS? What was that on?
I don't know, in DR what channel it was.
Yeah. Was he in the States at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was like, I would say a precursor of his shows.
Totally.
And then it was, and then like Ming Tsai, like those are like
Ming Tsai, love that guy.
Yeah. So those are like the shows I was, you know, looking at, and I would spend like every free time I had like looking at recipes online, and and I really just started cooking, and it really became a thing.
So what age were you? Right.
11.
11 years old.
Yeah.
Look at you. 11 years old, you're starting to cook at the house. I think I was still washing dishes at 11 years old at my parents' restaurant. I think they wouldn't even let me touch food at that point. Yeah.
Well, my dad was just like, don't get burned. You know, that he was terrified of me getting burned, and I'm like, I'm fine. But then I remember, like, you know, I'm like stuffing chicken breasts with, you know, spinach and fontina and doing a champagne sauce, and my dad is like, what is happening here? And again, it really became like a thing for me. And then I started doing the spreads for baseball. And I would have them themed by countries or like, you know, so you know, I was really experimenting. Funny enough, the last thing that I actually cooked was actually Dominican or Caribbean food. You know, unfortunately, I think kind of that appreciation of what's yours kind of comes a little bit last. You kind of like...
You know what? I feel the same way about Greek food.
Yeah.
I'd rather just eat it and enjoy it. And like, you know, what can you tell people what is Dominican food? It has a little bit of Caribbean flair, or like what makes up the cuisine a little bit?
Yeah, so I would say like actually the cuisine of Cuba, Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico are very similar. And that's just based on the fact that we were all colonized by the Spanish, and we have very similar ingredients.
Was Jose Andres the colonizer? Was he the one that came and colonized?
He colonized my heart.
Totally. Everyone's America's heart. He's colonized America's heart.
So there's a lot of similarities. Obviously, like a lot of tweaks, and also a little bit of feud of who invented what things, right? Between the three countries. But so we eat a lot of, like, rice is our like main starch, and plantains, like, and root vegetables, so a lot of yuca, yautía, you know, plantains in all forms, shapes, and sizes, and
What's your favorite type of plantain? Because there are so many different variations. So how do you like it? Like, what do you like it? Is it like with pork chops, or is it by itself, or is it with rice, or I mean, what?
You know, they all have different applications.
It's very versatile.
Very versatile. But I think, you know, a really good tostón, like fried green plantains, but like They have to be just right.
It's the accent kicked in there, toston. Yeah, the accent is coming. I like that when the accent comes out. I love it.
You know, so I feel like when they're done right, they're like, to me, they're heaven.
So at 11 years old, what are you in? You're not in high school yet.
No.
Yeah. So what?
I was in 5th grade.
5th grade.
Yeah.
And so life in the Dominican Republic. I mean, you're cooking. That's your passion.
Yeah.
But was there a different career focus at that time? Like as you're growing up, did your parents want you to become something?
A lawyer.
A lawyer, of course,
a
lawyer, a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So neither of my parents are lawyers, but there's a lot of lawyers in my family. And I feel like from a very young age, I was, had a big personality and always contested things. It was always challenging things,
yes.
Right? So I think that's been ingrained. So they're like, and I always felt like, I want to defend things. I want to be, I want to be a lawyer, except I don't really like reading. Yeah. So there's that. That changed.
I don't love reading either, actually. When I met my wife, she loved reading, and she was into journalism, so I started carrying books around the house a little bit just to look like I read. I was just like, there's put a book on a coffee table here when she come by, and
I'm an audiobook kind of gal. I like the content. I just can't focus long enough to get through a page. It's kind of So I'm just like half the page, ADD, and I'm like exactly. I'm like reading, but I'm not like
totally. I start thinking about other things. Exactly. It's like my mind just goes off into like, what am I doing next week, or what am I cooking, or why, something, the book said something, and I'm like trying to think about that's one sentence, and like I get lost or I fall asleep. Yeah. So
that's me. So then it was actually when I was 13. It was actually around this time. I remember asking my mom for $200, and she's like, "What do you need $200 for?" And I'm like, "I promise I'll pay you back." Granted, I've been having like businesses since I was like in 2nd grade. I
read a little bit about that. Yes.
So
you were selling stickers or something like that, right?
I would hustle with whatever.
Yeah.
Do braids. I just
it's like most guests I've had were hustling like drugs, and this one's like hustling like stickers, which I'm very impressed. Listen, you got to hustle what you can. Yeah.
So I asked her, "Hey, can I borrow $200?" And she's like, "Oh God!" I'm like, I promise I'll pay you back. And I went on this website, Oriental Trading. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's like, I don't know.
Sounds skeptical, but yes.
They sell a lot of like things for birthdays mostly.
Sure. Okay.
For kids' birthdays, but they sell a lot of like packaging, like little boxes and stuff.
Okay.
So again, it was around this time, or maybe
like an Etsy of sorts, right? Modern day? No, not really.
Like probably again Oriental Trading, more like Chinese manufactured type of thing. But they had like all these like holiday boxes and like little that were cute, like snowmen, and so, and then I got boxes, and then I got these like little boxes, and I just did a bunch of like petit fours, and did a brochure in paint.
For those who don't know what petit fours are, they're like little gifts of candy, or really they're like these gummy things, right, with like coated sugar and
I'm using it more like I did mini desserts, like
mini
really
desserts.
Tiny,
so
they were a sample, right? And then I did brochures and paint, mind you, okay?
Paint?
And you remember paint, like when it's like Word and Paint?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
paint.
Totally.
Exactly. Like I'm dating myself here, but yes.
Yeah.
And again, I'm like 13, right? And I put a little photo of the box, what it was. It was like brownies, like different. They were all desserts, and like the prize, I did little stickers too, and I did like 120 of these boxes, something around those lines. Yeah. And I kind of went everywhere and started giving them out. Like, so my mom worked at a bank. I went to the bank. Like all my neighbors, like, in DR, it's kind of like within certain pockets of community, I'm sure people were like, what's, this girl like giving out these things.
Exactly.
But the next day, the phone started ringing, and...
Look at you. You're just marketing genius at a young age, just throwing it out there.
I went and, it was really guerrilla marketing.
Totally.
But it did. The phone started ringing, and then I'm like, oh. Because the orders started coming in pretty aggressively. I'm like, okay, I was not expecting all this. And by, within the end of the following year, I had like 6 employees. And
how old were you again?
At that time, 14. When I started,
14
13.
years old. Yeah.
And, my parents had to like buy a second oven, and we had this whole it became this whole operation, and I was getting orders for like 600 cookies and whatever. I was like waking up at 4 a.m, baking before school, coming back. I had like a special arrangement with my high school, and and I kept that business until I graduated high school. And
so how long was that?
I guess since 5 years, is from 13 till I was 18.
Yeah. And so were you saving the money, or were you helping La Femme out a little bit? Like what was
saving the money because I wanted to go to culinary school. And so I wanted to go to CIA, and that was like from that time on I wanted to go to culinary school. And
so you knew you wanted to go to culinary school.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
See, unlike me, I fought tooth and nail not to go to culinary school.
Yeah.
I grew up in the restaurant business, so I was like, I was a little jaded at a young age, and I was like, I don't want to go to. But I went to the Culinary Institute too.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did you graduate there?
So I graduated 2010 from the bachelor's, and I think.
Oh, you did the bachelor's too? So you did associates and bachelor's?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, overachiever. I like it. I love it. I could only do. I did associates, and I was out.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I was, I at one point, it wasn't like straight away. I took a little bit of break in between. But then I kind of realized I missed the people aspect of cooking, and I felt like I was working in New York mainly, and I was buried in basement kitchens mostly, and I'm like, I miss.
So you started a business at 14 years old, widely successful. You had employees, you made money, you saved money to go to culinary school. Did you were you able to get some loans as well, or just you saved up all your money? I mean, culinary school is expensive, especially the Culinary Institute.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. So between the money and saved, and then my parents helped me out.
They hooked you up. Yeah, because you had proven yourself at that point.
As an immigrant, you unfortunately do not qualify for any loans.
Oh, look at that. I hope they fix that there at the Culinary Institute.
They should.
They should do that. They're missing a lot of great people.
Even with overachievers,
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy that you can't do that. So that was your introduction to America's, the Culinary Institute of America?
Yeah.
Wow. So you packed up your bags and you were like...
Packed up my bags, and I was like...
You finished high school.
Mm-hmm.
You a good student?
I was.
Yeah?
I was.
Overachiever. Look at you. Just businesses,
I've
good student.
Been an
How were you a good student if you couldn't read that well? I mean, or if you didn't like read? I'm just...
Well, I'm not going to sit and read novels for enjoyment.
Totally.
But,
Totally. But you're going to... All right. So that is quite a start to a young career, just being a young entrepreneur at that age. And did you like, I love marketing as well. Like I'm obviously a chef and love the restaurant industry, but I lately in my life, I have doubled down on marketing. Is that something you also enjoy, is like the marketing piece 100%. Of entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually like numbers a lot too.
Yeah.
So I always joke my brain split in two. I have the creative part of my brain, which to me is obviously the food and the beverage and the marketing aspect, and the other side is full numbers. I like I like how the intangibles, but then they need to be backed up, right?
Yeah.
I'm show me the numbers,
yeah.
right? I like both.
You like the data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do like
See,
the data.
more, it's a good balance, because most creatives don't have the number aspect. It's one or the other usually in the business.
I would say that's what I've encountered. And I feel like I'm not going to call it special, but I'm unique in that way of just that I literally feel like my brain is very split and down the middle.
Yeah. So what was your, so you must have graduated, I graduated in 2005, I think. And I was a late graduate because I stayed on my externship for 2 years actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, I was in the north of France in a castle, and I was like, I'm not going back to school.
Yeah.
I was like, there's so much to learn right here. It was a 3 Michelin Relais Chateau, and I was just like, I can't leave here. Thankfully, the CIA, when I returned, they let me just join another block and finish up school. But so what was the CIA like for you? Was that had you been to the United States before ever?
Yeah, I had been to the United States, but I would say primarily, like, I had been to New York, and I had primarily East Coast, but mostly Miami, actually, like Florida.
Sure.
Sunny Florida. So it was a hard, I remember I started in October, actually. It was like when my blog started.
Yeah.
And I did not like the weather. That hit me hard, coming from like, I feel like that the weather change was a big adjustment for me.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, it was just like,
like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I cannot walk outside. No, especially over there in Po Town in Poughkeepsie, right by the water, the river. You get a lot of those cold winds come through, the frost. So all right. So what culinary school was? How did you feel? Did you feel like you were vibing in culinary school as well? Was it like a little bit of a shock? Or
I would say initially it was a little bit of a shock.
Yeah.
Like just culturally, again, weather-wise, it took me a minute. I would say it was, at least like 6-7 months. I actually don't feel like I really hit my stride in culinary school till I came back from my externship.
See, look at this, just like me. I mean, maybe for different reasons. Like I said, I grew up in a kitchen, so I was making béarnaise and all the mother sauces growing up, and I felt like my first 6-7 months of culinary school was just like introductory courses of like cutting stuff, slicing things.
Yeah, you were bored.
So
probably.
I was kind of bored a little bit. I was like, what am I doing here? But I was a lost soul.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like, I didn't know. I was getting in way too much trouble in my teens, and I didn't really, know what my talent was, and I was struggling with that because food was my everyday. It was very normalized for me. The restaurant industry was very normalized, so I didn't know that cooking or this business was a thing. Like, I didn't know it was like a something that people wanted to do. I was just forced into doing it because my family was doing it. So culinary school was a little weird for me, but not until I came back, I was like, oh man, like I know things that people don't know. And like, I felt like I had a little bit more experience, and that's like just the little bit of inspiration I needed to kind of like push through a little bit. So where did you go for your externship?
I went to Gotham Bar and Grill.
Oh, with Alfred Pertal?
Yeah.
He was still there?
Yeah, he was still there.
That's a great place to go.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Grammy's, Gotham Bar. They just reopened as well under a new chef, I think, right? Like the brand?
Actually, they closed Gotham Bar and Grill. They reopened it as something else, but it's the same team.
It's the same team.
It's the same team. So, Alfred was still there, but not really as an executive chef. So I believe Adam Longworth, who was the chef at the time, is the chef now, and then Jacinto, who has been with Alfred basically.
Why did you choose Alfred? By the way, one of the longest standing New York City restaurants driven by a chef ever is like big props to Alfred, because not too many people could do that. I mean, Eric Repairs, maybe the other one that has had long-lasting longevity, which I know you went there. Yeah, you went. So externship at Alfred. Why'd you go there with all the externships you can go? Most people go to the Ritz-Carlton. This girl actually went to a chef. I mean, big time. I like that.
Well, I liked his food. Again, I didn't like reading novels, but I actually loved reading cooking books. Yeah. So I really, really enjoyed his food. I actually had a friend from DR that had gotten a job there as well, and like was really enjoying it, and I like the vibe. It was, to this day, the funnest kitchen I've ever worked at. It just like they had, yes, it was a Michelin star restaurant, but it was fun. Right? Like it still kept that I don't know, like,
was it your first kitchen? Like,
in the U.S., yes.
Yes.
I did work at a restaurant in DR as well.
Okay, so during high school, while you were being your entrepreneurial self with your business, you were also working in a restaurant?
Yeah, I started working in a restaurant probably at 17, because it was a requirement for at the time.
That's right.
I think they took that away.
They did. Now they just take your money.
Yeah. So I started working there, so I would also work at this restaurant called Pepperoni Cafe. Okay. It was actually founded by one of the chefs from Asia de Cuba. I don't remember that restaurant in New York so it was actually like pretty
decent restaurant.
Decent restaurant.
Okay.
But like pretty much every restaurant in DR has every food under the sun combined into one. You
Yeah.
have like sushi, pasta, like pizza, like everything you can imagine, and like
In one.
Yeah. You know, and a steakhouse. It's like
No
everything.
special, just the full. It's kind of like the diners of America.
Yeah,
It's like everything's on the menu.
basically.
So what was your entry level at Alfred? Were you like garde-manger
I
or
was a
stocks?
garde-manger.
Okay.
And then, but I did end up being in grill, which in that restaurant is
Big time.
the big time, because you know it was a steakhouse primarily.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I honestly I did love it. I was the only woman in that kitchen outside of pastry.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it was fun and also had its challenges.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
You know, but
A bunch of male cooks.
Yeah.
And just, you know,
but-
just inappropriate male cooks in the kitchen.
basically.
Yeah. The industry hadn't gotten Me Too'd by then, so it was,
It was a different time.
It was on its way.
Yeah.
You tell me about the one thing I always loved about Alfred is obviously his plating, which he's known for, and just like how high things go.
Very high. So garde-manger was actually a very challenging station.
Yeah.
At Gotham, like, you know, that seafood salad, like the height of the plates are.
It almost feels like a game of Jenga every single time you're
Basically.
plating. It's like,
and when you actually realize where the kitchen is and how much it actually had to travel to get to the diner and for the food to arrive with the height, you know, and not fall over, that to me was even more impressive.
yeah. How many servers got fucking fired at Alfred? Like, hold your dish straight. I could just picture it, right? Like it would fall over or something like that.
Super, super steep stairs. The servers had to have like 2 shirts per shift.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they were like just the runners running back and forth.
Totally.
Down. So yeah, it was, but I really loved the flavors, the like really like true cooking, building the layers. I honestly learned a ton.
And a great classical French background. You know, Alfred Patali's food was rooted in French culinary skills.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he improved upon it. He just got super creative with it. You know, for those who don't know, Alfred was like a total legend. And he was the first guy to really bring a little extra je ne sais quoi to like presentation. We were talking about the builds, right? He would build beautiful plates from the bottom up, where usually food was like more like flat, like Marco Pierre White, for instance, right? He'd spread across the plate a lot more. You read his cookbooks, White Heat and stuff like that. So yeah, no big. So that was 4 months. You obeyed the externship, or you stayed longer?
I stayed longer. I think
you stayed longer.
6.
6 months, yeah.
Yeah, but my parents, funny enough, that they came and visited me once, and they still talk about these like dishes, like when they came, like till this day.
Yeah.
They're still like, oh my god, I can't remember the goat cheese ravioli. Like they're obsessed with this goat cheese ravioli with like a bacon broth. Like still, like it's been, I don't even know how many years.
Well, they were proud of their young little girl working at a restaurant, killing it. You know, like, you know, people associate those food memories, right? Like, so like what they taste with a certain time in their life, and I think that must have been super special to them. You know, because my parents do the same thing with me. When I went to work for Drew Nipperant, do you know Drew, right, in New York City? I had opened up a Vietnamese restaurant with him. It was called My House, M-A-I House. It's no longer there. But we had this red snapper dish, and it was like the whole carcass of a red snapper. And we cut the bits and fried them, and then we have like the sweet and sour sauce that goes on top of them. It was like a huge presentation, and like to this day, they'd be like, "Oh my god, that red snapper dish!" I was like, "A red snapper dish." I was like, "Okay, it's enough with the red snapper dish already." All right, well, tell me. So you go back to culinary school, you finish up, you're doing bachelor's. We won't talk about
in between, like so. I actually finished, went to work at Le Bernardin.
So you finished,
associate.
and then went to work.
Yeah.
Oh, so you took a little time in between.
Yeah.
And why Le Bernardin? Like, who turned you on there?
So I actually, you know, I actually went to dine there. You know, saved up. I really wanted to go dine there.
Yeah.
So I went and dined there, and I think I was so like intense during the meal with the server that he's like, "Who are you?" You know what I mean? Like, I was like every little thing like dissecting. I was just like obsessed with it, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm actually, you know, I just graduated from culinary school," and it's like, He's like, well, are you interested in maybe staging here? I'm like, absolutely. You know, like, he's like, okay, like, why don't you put me as a reference? His name was Julio. He was one of their captains. And he's like, you know, realistically, they get like thousands of letters a day.
Sure.
But, you know, so, and give me your number, so I'll make sure to talk to Chef about you. So I went in and I staged, and you know they got me in, and that was an experience. A very different kitchen.
Totally,
you know, very
big
different
time.
kitchen.
Were you stuck in the back in the corner there as a stage, just watching? Like, you know, like they squeeze you.
Yeah,
they squeeze you in the back over there.
Yeah, I think I was. They gave me, like, you know, cut some lamb for a stock.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, they didn't allow me to do much during my stage, but
Sure.
it was, again, very organized, proper, very quiet kitchen.
Quiet kitchen.
Very different from Gotham. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
Gotham was fun still.
Yeah.
You know, like, you
wild
had,
and fun and Americana.
This was like very military-esque and rigorous, but
La Brigade.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I remember. So I didn't officially do time at Le Bernardin, but I wanted to learn. So like on the weekends, I would travel to New York and I would stage. I would just walk in because they have a little bit of an open door policy. If you called, you can, you know, if they need an extra person, you can go there. And even sometimes during the week when we had off from school or something like that, I would line up my stages because I knew their family meal schedule. And I think if I remember correctly, they had a taco night and they had a pizza night. And I think taco was like Tuesdays and pizzas was Thursdays or something like that. And they would make these awesome family meals. So I always would line up my stages based on their family meal. So I get like this awesome meal at the end of it. But I remember the kitchen, the same thing. I mean, you know, I was able to strain some stocks, you know, and, you know, I loved seeing, you know, what was awesome about that kitchen is, again, French technique, rooted in French technique. But they brought in kaffir lime leaves and lemongrasses, and they brought some exotic ingredients to some of the recipes, you know, a lot of curries. And one of the dishes, I went for dinner there too, just like you. I saved up. I was like, I need to eat at this place. My favorite dish, I want to know what yours was, but mine was this monkfish that they made with I think it was a smoked paprika sauce. It was like a really dark paprika sauce, and it was just super simple. It's just, you know, coming from Alfred Pertal to going to Le Bernardin.
Very different.
Pretty shocking, especially with plating, right? And like Eric's stuff is so simplistic, right? It less is so much more for him in the industry.
Yeah, it's like the ingredients shine, like let the ingredients shine.
Yeah.
So, you know, a couple of the dishes that, so remember there was actually white tuna dish with...
Those are the one with capers and olives, was it?
No, it had, of course, I'm like forgetting the name right now, but help me out. The super briny little, like they look like little algae, but...
Little algae. Oh, the sea...
yes.
Sea something.
Yes.
Urchin?
No.
Oh.
Good try, Jay.
I'm like,
Sea, it's like sea. It's like they're like. Can you look it up? It's like little like seaweed bubble type thing. What's it called? Not sea. I know what you're talking about. Though.
You know what, okay,
it pops, right? It kind of pops in your mouth a little bit.
And it was poached in olive oil, and it's actually, you know, they call it white tuna. It's not white tuna.
Sea perch? So
That's a type of fish.
No.
Nice try.
it's trick too.
You get one more, Jay. Make sure it's a seaweed-looking type of thing, and it's got like little.
Super salty.
Super salty, and it's got like little like round things in it that like pop.
Yeah.
Is it sea grapes?
Sea breams?
Sea grapes?
Sea grapes? That's closer, by the way. You get 2 more guesses too, but
We'll figure it out, but I'll remember by the end of this. But that was, you know, one of the dishes that I really loved, and one of the dishes that I also was one of my favorites, still actually on the menu, which is pounded tuna with foie gras.
Oh, I got it.
ooh, oh yeah, what is it?
I'm gonna mispronounce it. Embutido, but it's called seaweed grapes.
Oh, so yeah, she was
right,
close.
yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. We'll give it to you guys.
So yeah, but I learned a ton about sauces. Like that was insane.
Wasn't that sauce station the best station
It
ever
was
on the face of the planet?
the
The
best
saucier
station.
guy was
It's-
so impressive to me.
Yeah, it was so intense, and just I would love watching the chefs like going that time where like they're doing the lineup and tasting
Yeah.
the sauces. And it was not easy,
No.
not an easy station by any means. And there's just so much riding on the sauces that.
So much, right?
Yeah.
The sauce is everything there at Le Bernardin, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's and they go through. I mean, they go through the classical ways of everything. It's like huge reductions. You're straining. They did this lobster sauce there that I thought was just, oh my God! Every time I had it, it was just like so good.
And then it was a very different restaurant, and I also actually got to work with the person that did all their fish butchery, right? And he's actually Dominican from Samana, and it was listen, when that guy goes on vacation, it takes 6 people to do his job, and they still take
They still can't do it.
Literally they
Yeah.
still can't do it. Like it's insane.
Yeah.
He's that good. So yeah, it was really like just a whole different experience. I'm not gonna say I definitely think I vibed more with like Gotham.
Yeah, just a little more
But
fun. Yeah.
I did fall in love very much with wine while working at Le Bernardin.
Yeah.
I got to work a lot of events, les salons, and then got introduced to a lot of wines that I would certainly not necessarily have had the privilege of
Totally.
my budget, before it. So I really started kind of getting, allured in that direction.
Yeah.
And actually, it was Eric that told me, like, I really see you, like, 'cause I think while working these events and, like, I was, like, asking so many questions about wine and,
Yeah.
like, and again, I loved how, like, food made people feel.
Yeah.
And he actually's like, I really see you, like, in the front. I'm like, I had never really considered it prior to that. But it kind of made me go back to school and actually more with, like, a beverage focus. I became very interested in the whole
That's interesting.
beverage.
So you had good interactions with Eric.
Yes.
Yeah. And so he kind of inspired you to kind of look at the business a little differently.
Yeah.
I love that. So was that the last official kitchen that you had been working in?
Yeah.
As like in the back of the house?
Yeah.
It's not bad. I mean, Gotham and Le Bernardin.
Yeah, and
you know?
I did like you. I also did a lot of stages during
Yeah.
the weekends, and some that were like kind of recurring that I would just go every weekend. My cousin lived in the city, so I would crash in his couch.
Was there any moment like when you were going through all of this that you were like, what am I doing? Like why, or was it all positive for you? Were you
No,
like,
it
I
wasn't.
should have been a lawyer, or I should have listened, or I should have done this other career path?
There were definitely times,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, like I feel like every inch of my body hurt, like, cause
You're on your
working
feet all
at
day long.
Bernardin, you're working like 16-hour days,
Big time.
as 6 days a week. Like it's tough.
It's a lifestyle. It's not just a
Exactly.
job over there. When you work at one of these places,
Yeah.
you have to be all in.
Yeah.
You have to be all in. You gotta put in the huge hours. The other thing I love about Le Bernardin, and we'll move on from Le Bernardin, but I always remember you brought up the fish butchery guy, and maybe I think they still do this, but I was always amazed that in a lot of restaurants, well, if they get the whole fish, they'll pre-cut everything for the most part. Some will just order it already fabricated. But I always remember, and maybe it was just special fishes, maybe it was like just the tunas, but they would pull out the whole tuna from underneath. Like every time they got an order, and they would cut a fresh slice off of it, and then they would put the whole tuna back down. And I was just always amazed by that. I was like, wow, like they're butchering to order, which is insane.
Yeah.
So bachelors, so back to the CIA.
Yeah.
And were you kind of excited to get back? Did you do the dorms the first time around there, or?
I did.
And
yeah.
the second time?
I was in like the newer housing situation.
The newer housing. Okay.
That was more like little apartments.
Yeah. Was Jennifer Carroll at Le Bernardin when you were there? Do you remember
No,
her?
she was not.
She was there. She came afterwards, right,
Yeah,
or
I
something
think
like
so.
that. All right. So bachelor. So now you have this new inspiration to kind of go front of the house and pay attention a little bit more to beverage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of, when I went back, I went really like, my head was at the time like really in wines. Like,
Yeah.
so took all the advanced wine courses.
Who was your wine teacher? Do you remember?
Weiss.
Oh my God, I love Weiss. He's from Montreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, Weiss and I are like this. I got a 98. A 98, I think, grade on my wine. Is the best grade I've ever got in my life was the wine course.
Oh,
I think it's
really?
only because I was from Montreal and he knew some of my family's in the mafia in Montreal, and he knew my family.
He's like, I better not.
He's like, I'm gonna give this guy a 98. So, but Weiss was great, right? Like he was, he was a great teacher.
Yeah.
I wonder if we crossed paths over there. I graduated 2005. You probably.
No, I was.
Yeah.
I started 2007.
2007.
Yeah.
Oh, we just missed each other.
Yeah.
Just missed each other. But all right, so let's get to the present a little bit. So after bachelor's and you graduating, what was your next move? Like after you graduated that, where'd you go?
I actually took a job at the Four Seasons.
Okay.
And that's how I ended up in DC.
Oh, here, the Four Seasons in DC.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't. I actually
At
didn't
Bourbon
know-
Steak or just?
Supposedly.
Okay. Ooh. Tell me about this.
Yeah, supposedly. So.
I love supposedly.
Yeah. So, I was an overachiever, especially like after having worked in the industry. I would say my resume at the time was pretty good, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Gotham, Le Bernardin,
You got some props there,
and
yeah.
then, wine scholarships, because I got again.
You went all in.
I went all in.
Yeah.
I had a few job offers on the table, but I don't know. I really, I guess at the time my career was more like luxury, and I was, I liked, I guess, my conversations with the Four Seasons, and it was again with a Michael Mina restaurant, Bourbon Steak, and I took the job. And
Was Adam Sopel there by then?
yes,
He was. Okay.
he
Okay.
was. And literally, kid you not, the day before I started, they called me and said, actually, you're going to start at Seasons. And I'm
At
like,
Seasons.
Thank you.
Yeah. At Seasons? How dare you?
And we'll see you here at 3 a.m. Yeah.
Ooh.
That's what we mean when I go to bed.
Ooh.
Like I'm a restaurant
Yeah.
kid at that time. Well, my schedule has shifted now, but at the time, I'm like, that's when I go to bed.
Yeah, you're like, what? That reminds me when I got accepted at French Laundry and I got there and they're like, you're at Garde Manger and Bouchon, which, by the way, was a blessing in disguise because I loved that Bouchon Bistro. But so Seasons at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And so you were like, all right.
So I showed up, right? I honestly,
You were already here.
yeah,
You moved.
I moved
you,
here.
you were here. Yeah,
I
yeah,
moved
yeah,
here.
yeah.
I packed up. I moved here. This is literally the day before I start,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, what? Like, how can you not even tell me this earlier? Like, my whole schedule has to shift. What do you mean I'm like waking up at 3? Have
Yeah.
to be at work. I lived like near Rockville at the time.
Yeah.
Had to like commute to Georgetown. I'm like, there's not even a metro running or anything. Like, it was just like, okay, like
Yeah.
let's figure this out. I was miserable. I effing hated it.
Yeah.
Like, it was awful. Like, I looked like a panda.
Who wants to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning?
No, I just,
No.
I literally.
Especially a passionate person that wants to like
Well, it's-
drive the business forward. Like,
Exactly.
like
First of all, I'm like a restaurant kid, right?
Yeah.
I love food.
Yeah.
You're putting me and beverage, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is what I've been like focusing on, beverage and fine dining, and then you're sticking me in breakfast serving eggs and like, with lobbyists that are just particular on, their hard-boiled egg or is
Yeah.
like in the right place or their toast. It just like, it was not my scene
yeah,
at all. I hated
breakfast
it.
cookery. Ugh.
Exactly.
Oof.
Plus, I will say the one thing I really suck cooking is eggs.
Yeah.
Like, I'm bad at
You're
eggs.
bad at it. No
That's
eggs.
not like,
Are there eggs on the menu, Colada?
There are.
There-
There are.
okay. So you come around.
I mean, like,
I know what you mean.
it's
I know.
not my forte.
Yeah.
There's some people that are like, just,
Well, egg cookery is one of the most difficult. I always tell people, like, breakfast line cook, it's a tough job.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, cooking eggs is no easy business. I mean, and you have to be fast. You have to execute. I mean, the yolk breaks, it cracks, this, that, the other. It's like,
just not, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like within cooking, everyone has their talent.
Yeah, totally,
talents,
100%.
Right? Like, I feel like baking has always come very naturally to
Yeah.
me, and actually, like, cooking proteins has cooked very naturally to me,
Yeah.
and like pastas, but just, I don't know what it is about me and eggs that
Yeah.
I don't know, we haven't connected.
Yeah.
I've gotten better.
You've gotten better.
I will say I took it like during that pandemic, became my project.
What
eggs. Like, because I was like, I need to revisit you.
Yeah.
I just felt like I needed to come back. So now it's better, but there was one of those things. So I'm like, I really hate this. Like, this is not what I envisioned and kind of prepared myself for.
Yeah.
And even though I'm kind of circling back around now with Colada, I'm like still like we call it like all day business. So I'm open in the morning, but I will say though, it's just breakfast is tough, not because of the food aspect, it's because people are cranky. Let's start with that piece.
Yeah.
Like you're serving people before they've had their coffee.
Totally.
Before they're like, so it's just kind of like they're the most particular. There's usually no alcohol involved, so they're stuck up.
That's right.
It's kind of like this scenario where like breakfast is tough.
It's the beginning of the day, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
And I had never done hotels.
Yeah.
We'll never do hotels. As far as like, F&B side, yes.
Sure.
But I really didn't care about the million committees.
Yeah.
And the other things that my job entailed that had nothing to do with food.
Yeah.
And making people happy.
Totally.
So it wasn't my scene. So I moved here because of that job, and I don't think I lasted even 3 months.
Oh, so did you have even a chance to say, hey, like, this is not for me? Like, they didn't want to move you to bourbon, or you're just kind of like, just a bad taste in your mouth from the get-go?
They were going through a transition of hotel managers and so forth, and I think there was just a lot of miscommunication. Let's just leave it at, I did not have a great experience there.
Enough said.
Yeah.
Enough said. I mean, this happens in the industry more than people know. Like that's what part of the struggles of this industry is, like the unknown of when you take a job and you move somewhere, and like, how's the business going to operate? Are you going to enjoy it? Are they supporting you? Sometimes people hire just a human being rather than the person, right? And they just want to fill a spot. It seems like they were just short on breakfast cookery, and they're like, oh, we got this new person coming in. Yeah. Let's just put it over there. But all right, so forget the Four Seasons, although it's a great restaurant, Bourbon.
Bourbon.
Big shout out to Adam Sopel.
Yeah.
We love Adam. Yeah. We love him. We love the Four Seasons. DC. It's a DC establishment.
And I go there all the time.
I love the bar. They have a great little steak and salad there that I love. So, all right. So then you're like, okay, oh shit, this is not for me. And then you go where?
So I then took a job at it was called Star Restaurant Group. They had Zola, Wine and Kitchen, Potenza. I don't know if you remember.
Star Restaurant, like Steven Star Restaurant Group? No, it's different Star, right?
It was different.
Yeah.
It was like at the Old Spy Museum. I had Zola, and then they had Zola Wine and Kitchen. Where Mini Bar is now. And Potenza, and then they had Potenza Wine. So they had like 2 wine stores. And then they had 2 restaurants, one Italian, one kind of, I would say, modern American. And so I took the job because they really threw me into the beverage program aspect and running. So it was interesting in the sense that I went from basically never ultimately have like actually ran a restaurant, managed a restaurant, to being like, here you go. Yeah.
That's how it happens.
Do your first inventory. And I'm like, talking about, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of wine in inventory, right?
Yeah.
And never have even done an inventory before in my life. Teaching myself how to code micros back in the day.
What a nightmares.
But honestly, like, it was chaos in a way, but I loved it. And the reason why was because I figured it out.
Yeah.
I didn't have any guardrails. I just had to figure it out, and so I did. And I put systems in place, and taught myself how to do things.
Yeah.
And then kind of was doing multiple of the locations, and was buying a lot of wine and tasting a lot of wine, things that I like.
You were living the dream. You were living the American dream, figuring in the weeds, figuring it out. You're a problem solver from day one. It sounds like you were like entrepreneurial, want to get things done.
Yeah, so I got things done, and it was great. And a personality like mine that I don't like to be told no or ask for permission. Quite frankly,
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll just do it. So
Do it, beg for forgiveness later,
exactly.
maybe.
No, but I won't even care.
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
No one
Yeah.
cares. So I was just doing my thing, and then I actually out of there got recruited from Jose Andres.
Ooh, yes. Jose, who recruited you there?
Actually, the recruiter.
Oh, okay, just the actual recruiter.
Well, she was the one who reached out.
So
yeah.
are you, so in wines, so are you a sommelier or?
I am.
Oh, you are certified sommelier.
Yeah, I am a certified sommelier.
Master sommelier?
Not master.
Master,
come
just,
on. No,
okay,
no,
not all the way, it's just certified.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty heavy course, right?
It is.
Where
It
did
is.
you do that?
Through the quartermaster sommeliers and then also WSET.
But that was in DC while you were here. Oh,
yeah,
nice.
While I was here, yeah.
Yeah. What about the wine business do you dislike? Like what
I
eats?
think previously I think it's changed a lot, but at the time how snobby it was, I would say in closed off. We were either in the circle or kind of out of the circle. But I will say I have never liked how wine, and actually I took the same approach with coffee. I never like when people try to make you feel like lesser than because you don't know some information.
Sure.
Listen, wine is difficult, the world does not make it easy for
No
you.
way.
You know what I mean? Like you're
All the
studying wine, you're
dominations,
actually studying geography more than you're studying wine,
Totally.
quite frankly, and soils.
Yeah.
So I think to me, in both sense, you just have to make it fun for the guests enjoying. It's not about what I like to drink or if I like you might white Zinfandel for all I care and drinking super sweet Riesling, or it doesn't, but that's what you like, and that's completely fine. That's not my taste. That's not what I like, but that doesn't matter. As a som, your job is to get that person the best wine or beverage altogether they're going to enjoy. You give me a sweet cocktail and I'm gonna be like, oh my god, no, please get this out. I'm a Negroni drinker, right?
Yeah.
But you give a Negroni to someone that likes the sweet and fruity cocktails and they're gonna be like, oh, get this out of the way.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's about making people happy.
There you go. That's what the industry's about. Do you have a good wine radar on? How many times have you encountered those people that feel like they know everything about wine? They're swizzling the cup, at the dining, and are you just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you supposed to do that? Are you supposed to
aerate the wine?
Aerate it?
Yeah,
every wine gets aerated?
Not necessarily every wine.
Which ones don't get? Is it white versus red, or is it not? Is it not that simple?
Well, sparkling you don't.
You don't
necessarily.
aerate.
Well, it depends. If you're tasting for the sake of tasting, sure you want to get air to get the aromas out, but if you're aerating sparkling, you're gonna kill the bubbles, right? So you don't want to do that when you're actually then enjoying the wine. I would say you want to be careful. Same thing. You don't want to decant every wine. You can actually hurt the wine by older wines.
Well, how do you hurt the wine?
Actually, allowing it to breathe too much.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Gotta suffeffocate that thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to let the breathe. Yeah.
It depends. Again, it depends the type of grape. You're talking about a heavy cab or a delicate gamay.
These are the complexities that we're talking about. Yeah.
Exactly. But to me, it's you have to make it approachable and just trying to But yes, there's people that are definitely putting on a show, and you're sitting and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And it's most people don't know that I'm a som, and it's not a muscle that I flex a lot, especially nowadays. You know, I'm in Cuban food right now. We don't really it's
There's
not
no Cuban wines, are there?
No,
Not really.
Not really, right? We're in the mojito pina colada category
There
here
we go.
at Hotel Nacional. So it's funny because I do enjoy wine a lot and personally consume a bit of it, right?
Yeah.
And still super interested and have a lot of friends that are soms and so I'm very surrounded by it, but most people don't. It doesn't cross their mind that I know things about
What
wine.
are your spots in DC that you you can go have a nice glass of wine?
Well, Maxwell.
Okay.
Maxwell. Brent has a great selection of wines. From a restaurant standpoint, I like the list that Lutes has some good wines. The Red Hen.
The Red Hen.
Yeah.
Have you been to Amma yet?
I love Amma.
Yeah,
Yes.
we had Johanna here
Yeah.
a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
she's
she's
great.
awesome.
She's
Awesome.
she's
And
a,
her.
she's a beast, right? I could tell you two
So,
probably get
okay.
along quite well.
Oh,
I bet.
do.
Yeah.
We do. So funny story.
Yeah.
When I was working with the Star Group, Micah, her husband,
Yes.
was my bartender.
Oh, okay. Look at that. There you go.
So we go.
I love what she's doing. She's going for this super clean style
Super
restaurant,
clean, and it's
food,
just,
and
and the oils and everything. I
the
love it.
water filtration. I'm like, man, your cost of goods got to be big. I'm like,
I
how do you
know.
do?
And
How
the
are you doing?
paper goods. Yeah,
The paper goods,
I
and I'm
know.
like, watch out. I love your mission. I was like, but like, listen, a bottom line is a bottom line.
I agree, but I hope that that
Big time. So I'm
I
rooting. I'm
hope-
rooting.
Exactly.
I'm rooting. I'm rooting for her. She's awesome. What a background. Her father, right across the street from Le Bernardin back in the day. His restaurant was there. I forgot what the name of it was, but he was a force to be reckoned with. So yeah. I mean, who else are you? I want to get to your Jose Andres stuff,
Yeah.
and but who else are you like? Are you fans of like growing up in the business in DC? Like, were there like certain chefs that you kind of really admire that you didn't get to work for, or restaurateurs, or like,
Yes.
where'd you draw inspiration from most of the time?
I will be honest, like from DC, like from a chef standpoint, most of my experience was with Jose.
Yeah.
So didn't get to like work with a ton of DC chefs like back in the day when I was like,
Sure.
in restaurants, but I think, Chef Riz is an icon, for sure. And like, there's a ton of like very
Yeah.
talented chefs that, back then, Michel Richards,
Michel Richard, God bless his soul.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of like fantastic, iconic chefs, but I just didn't have
Yeah.
the pleasure of working with them.
I was a little surprised when he opened up that restaurant called Balls. Do you remember that? Were you here for that?
Yes.
I was like, no. I was like, I read the headline. I was like, who?
Yeah,
I was
that
I
was
was
a
mad at
bad
whoever convinced him to do
Exactly.
that restaurant. I was like, who convinced Michel Richard to do a restaurant called Balls? It was all about meatballs, obviously, but
Yeah.
it felt pretty flat. I mean,
Yeah.
it was, but his American style bistro,
Central.
Central, and
Yeah.
then was it Centronella? His
Centronella,
fine,
yeah.
his fine one in the Ritz Carlton
Georgetown, right?
in Georgetown.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, no, epic guy.
Citronelle.
Citronelle, that's what it was. Citronelle, what a beautiful restaurant that
Yeah.
was. That was awesome. All right, so you got recruited by the recruiter,
Yeah.
and where did you get recruited to?
Zaytinya.
Oh, Zaytinya, another one of my faves.
Yeah.
During the Mike Isabella era,
He had just left.
he had just left. Okay,
Literally had just left.
Literally just left. Okay, yeah. I mean, it was.
We were doing like a clean sweep. It was like new GM. I was doing beverage. Well, and Chef Michael Costa, who's still there and
Yeah,
today,
and does a
still
great
the
job.
head
Yeah,
chef.
I was just took my family there not too long ago. Great meal.
Yeah.
So Zaytinya, and what were you doing there? Were you doing the beverage program?
Yeah, I was doing beverage, and then it was.
Did you ever wander into the kitchen every once in a while and like
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
do your
so
thing there
as
too, a little
part-
bit? Yeah.
As part of the training with Jose, at least at the time, we had to spend like over a month in the kitchen.
Oh, okay.
So
I like that.
I loved. Oh, I was in like
Yeah,
heaven.
yeah.
I loved it. So I worked every station in the kitchen, and including prep, rolling phyllo, like
That's really good.
Zoom.
That's a healthy front of house, back of house relationship builder, because we all know the stresses between front of house and back of house, right?
And that's an intense restaurant, right?
It's an intense restaurant. A lot of covers.
Yeah, 1,200, 1,400 cover days.
Yeah.
It was an intense restaurant.
See, I'm too silly for that. So when I had my bistro, which was Bernays on Capitol Hill, with my sister, we opened it up. We had servers. We had a couple servers that asked us to, hey, like we'd like to go spend some time in the kitchen, and like and I was just an asshole, really. And I was like, all right, why don't you come in? I'll give you an apron. And I literally had, I remember it was Ideen, and I was like, and it was a much smaller kitchen. And I was like, all right, I need you to like whip some cream for me. And I had poured milk in the bowl, and I handed it to him. And the poor guy was just like,
Aren't you nice?
he was just like, he just kept on whisking, and he could kind of look over his shoulder, and he started sweating, and the sweat was coming, and it was like 15 minutes, and he's like, man, is Chef fucking with me? I don't know what's going on. I was like, and I'd come back in the kitchen and be like, yo, I need this cream. Like, what is going on here? I was like, keep whisking. I was like, you got to incorporate air. I was like, you're just moving the cream. I was like, you're just moving the cream around. You got to incorporate air into the cream. And you sit there. Finally, I mean, I told him, but it was just, you know, I don't know. I was just, you know, I didn't really want servers in my kitchen. I was just, but I was also kind of like Escoffier. Like I grew up reading Escoffier, and Escoffier, I don't know if you know this about him, but he was a huge prankster. I mean, he loved pranking people in the kitchen, and I always grew up in kitchens, my family's restaurants, even in France when I worked. Everyone was always pranking each other, whether it was like a hot spoon in your bain-marie, or, you know, like put in the oven, right? And then they put it in your bain, and you go grab the spoon to plate something, and it just slips out of your hands. And so I was like, I don't know. I always came from that background. I always enjoyed fucking around in the kitchen a little bit more. I never took it. I came from serious kitchens, but I don't know. I think I was a little like you. Like I liked having a little bit more fun than being too serious.
It's, you know, I liked, and that's why I think I like Gotham so much. Like we were still putting, you know, very high quality product out, but having fun in between. You know, like very super quiet kitchens. It just like I actually staged for Grey Coons, like for, oh my god, that was quiet. Yeah. That's like you can't even like drop a pin. You know, and I'm like, I cannot work here. That was like one. I was like, I will say best risotto at the end of that stage. I remember they gave me this like white truffle risotto that I was like, oh my god, I am in heaven, and I just died, and it was amazing. But it was like a place that I'm like, I could never work here. Yeah. Like this is like it's too much. Too much. It's just like it's meant to be fun. Like people go into hospitality and restaurants not because they want to be in a desk job, right? Or like it's just like your personality is not meant for that. So like these super structured, quiet kitchens are not my thing.
Yeah, they're not my thing either. Except I think there's a place for them, and I enjoy them when there's a lot on the line. Yeah. Like I enjoy them, for instance, when I worked in the north of France, there was a 3 Michelin star restaurant for Gerard Boyer, but for 20 years he had 3 Michelin. So like there's a lot on the line, right? So, and it was an actual brigade system. They weren't faking the quiet kitchen. It was like a full brigade system. Like I don't remember how we did it, but like we would never even call out times, right? Like it was just like that's how quiet it was. Like you just had to look and observe and know
when you to fire.
Yeah, you know when to fire, right? And know when to plate and when come to the pass. There might be one little notion, hey, we're picking up this table. But that was really it. Patrick O'Connell at the Inelo, Washington. Have you been?
Yes.
It's
and
great.
I actually dined in the kitchen there, and it was, wow.
Right? And they got the music playing. Did you watch the documentary?
I actually haven't.
You haven't? You got to watch that. I produced the documentary on
really?
there. Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's 99 cents. So you should watch it. It's awesome story.
I'll do so. But to me, it was so impressive, like, but also a little embarrassing when I stood up to go to the bathroom, and it was like, and then I came back, and it became this whole production. But how the whole kitchen stopped. Didn't matter where you were. They obviously don't know when I'm coming back from the bathroom.
Right.
And I was like, oh, wow.
Like, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I was like, wow. Yeah.
I love what he does. So his Relais and Chateau, they compare his Relais and Chateau with the place I worked at in north of France called Le Carrière. And actually, Patrick O'Connell, when he came to the Culinary Institute to sign cookbooks, I was the last in line, and I got my cookbook signed, with the scallop on it. You know which one I'm talking about, right? And he recommended I go work in the north of France. I was like, I'm looking to go work somewhere. I want to work at a chateau. I want to go to France. And he's like, go there. And so I went there, and it opened up the world to me. But at that point, like, I was working in my parents' restaurants. I had culinary school. I was a jackass. I wasn't too inspired about the business. I was really jaded at a young age. But when I went to the France, that's kind of where I drew a lot more inspiration. I drew the passion for sourcing, right, where things came from, because everything was so unique there that it's a side of the business I hadn't seen before, right? I grew up working in Florida at my parents' restaurant. It's like, it's not the greatest subculture of a kitchen, right? So, but yeah, I always tell people if they really, if they're serious about the business, sometimes getting out of the United States and maybe you came to the United States, it's a different approach, but sometimes getting out of your comfort zone, could do a lot. But all right, so you're at Zaytinya's, you're doing your thing. How many years you were there? Did you get moved around a little bit?
I did. Well, I was at Zaytinya for a little bit, and honestly, like all that teaching that I did in my previous job came in very handy, because I was, I think they were used to a lot of layers because a lot of people didn't know how to do certain things because working with a larger company, then you have the departments, and I was coming from a place that I was my department, right?
Yeah.
There was no IT, there was no nothing. I had
Totally.
to figure it out.
You were it.
So I don't know, and I wanted to be the overachiever that I was, and I overachieved, quite honestly, and took that beverage program and really organized it and like increased sales, like just in beverage, like over $1 million in less than a year.
That's real bottom line right there.
I loved it. It was cool, and then
That's when the numbers come in for you,
Yeah.
right? Like it's the challenge.
I needed to see the results.
You needed to see the results. Yeah.
So, but it also started with people who had no idea anything about Greek wine at the time.
Yeah.
Right? So, and even the servers, and they were just selling, half the time they were selling the wrong wine.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't even read the
So did you have a lot of mostly Greek wines there?
Yeah. So.
But not just Greek wines?
No, it was Greek, Lebanese, and Turkish.
Oh, so you didn't have any French wines or
No.
California wines or anything like that?
No.
Oh, so Lebanese, Turkish, and Greek. And what were the better? Which ones were the best? Tell me. You know I'm Greek, right?
I know.
No,
I
really.
know.
Was it Turkey? What was it?
It was primarily, I would say, it was Greek.
Yeah.
I would say there was Lebanese house that I really, really loved, Chateau Musar. But, that was definitely, I would say, a little unicorn within Lebanese wines. But I love Greek wines.
You had Ribolas, I would imagine, there from Zakynthos or some. Yeah, because I'm from Kefalonia.
Okay.
My family owned a winery there. It's no longer there. And the vines were from Zakynthos.
Okay.
And they brought them to Kefalonia, and they were doing some really good Ribolas.
Okay.
They were actually doing an ice wine too, which was weird, a version of it. But
but I love the wines from Santorini.
Oh, yeah.
I do. And but I also love Sino Mavros, like Alpha State. I love and then
Yeah. They're good food wines with seafood, right? Like were they? Is that what you
I think Greece has fantastic wines.
Yeah.
I think you can really taste the soil, especially again the island wines.
But they're so underrated. Why are they so underrated? Is it people just don't appreciate it, or what is the thing?
Marketing.
Marketing. It's all marketing.
It's marketing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think where Greek wines have struggled is that. And honestly, like at Zaytinya, we were one of the largest purchasers of Greek wine in the whole U.S. Right, so I had the privilege of getting my picks, right, and it just people don't, and I think it's changed since then, but it's just they're hard to say. A lot of them, they're like a Certico, Sino Mavro. It's just people don't know, they're just not familiar with the wines. But it's a marketing thing. And I feel like a lot of Greek wines have only marketed to Greek restaurants. And I think that's a mistake.
Big time.
I think they're fantastic food wines.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it just they have gotten cornered a little bit.
Yeah.
Where I really do believe Greek wines have a place in every wine.
Is it as easy to bring these wines into the United States?
Yeah.
It is. So it's nothing to do with importing the wines here. Yeah.
There's some wines that have very, very small production. That's why it's not that it's difficult to get them in. It's just the production is so small. You have some Agiogeticos that represent less than 1% of the production of the island of Santorini, right? So you don't see a lot of it here just because they don't produce a lot, period, right? But I think it's just demand, right?
Yeah.
And I think people are getting more familiar. But I'll tell you the truth. I went to Greece multiple times and with wine trips, right? And a few times I went with multiple master sommeliers, and they had no idea about anything about Greek wines.
Right.
Literally the most basic knowledge.
Wow.
On Greek wines. I knew a lot because that's what basically my entire list
Sure.
was that. So I was so hyper focused on it.
Yeah.
But I was surprised that it was just like, wow, we're talking here. Like one of the trips I was with 3 master somms. And when I mean base level knowledge of Greek wines, and I'm just like, okay, so if this is the master somms that are, you know, and obviously that was part of the process why these trips were happening to get them more familiarized.
Yeah.
But if that was master somms and knew that little, you know, where do you live? Let everyone else be, right? So I think that's kind of the.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So tell me, all right. So did you work any other places?
Yeah. So with Jose, yeah. So I opened America Eats. I was kind of like honestly.
Yeah.
Then after that, a few other.
But at what point were you like, this is enough? I'm doing it for myself now.
You know, I think it hit a point that that entrepreneurial blood that I've always had of like, okay, I kind of learned what I needed to learn and started getting antsy, I would say, just because I knew I could be doing a lot more than I was doing. And
what did the more represent to you? Was it business? Was it? I know you're into you're into policy. You're into to supporting women, not only women's rights, but in business as well, right? So what was the more you were looking for?
You know, I think initially, like, yes, I 100%, you know, support, like, a lot of immigration and women's rights and, you know, women in this industry. At the time, I would lie to you if I said that was my...
That wasn't the focus.
That was not the focus.
Well, I love the transparency, yeah.
It wasn't.
You were just like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to kick
Exactly.
ass. Yeah.
I wanted to do my own thing. I felt like I had too many roadblocks, right? I think I could have stayed within the right environment if I was kind of let to do my thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, quite honestly, at the time, like, now it's Jose Andres Group. It was called Think Food Group. Was going through a lot of leadership transition and a lot of changes were happening. And I didn't really see myself within those changes, right? And I felt kind of stuck, right? And that I couldn't have that creative outlet that I needed, right? So I needed that creative outlet. That's where I thrived. I'm not in the box type of person. I'm always kind of like
outside the box.
You know,
oh, you don't say. I could see that.
You know, so yeah. So I, you know, when that time came, I realized like, you know, it's my time to go.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know at the time exactly. I had started kind of on the side already with one of my business partners, Juan Coronado, who actually we met while he was actually staging for his role as cocktail innovator for Jose Andres, and I helped him during his stage. We had started a consulting business on the side for beverage, and then that kind of started taking a little bit more form, but it still was kind of just a little bit of a side hustle. And I don't know, it was kind of like it's time, right?
Yeah.
Like it's time to do something else, move on, have another outlet. And I didn't leave saying I'm gonna do this, right? It was more kind of had that. We were working with some hotels that we were doing beverage programs for. And as things started to kind of take shape. And Juan, who I would say at the time was definitely like a lot more well-known within the industry and more advanced, he had to say that I had the privilege of having him always believe in me. You know, he's the creative part.
Yeah.
And he always like, he's like, with you, anything, because like, you know, like the business side, the hustle, like the organization.
Yeah.
He knew kind of like he didn't have that side of the brain.
Sure. That's what makes a good partnership, just
Yeah.
knowing your lane, right? So.
Exactly. So, you know, him and I started like working on more things, and again, he provided me that support like earlier in my career. Like, I got you. Don't worry. Like, it's fine. Like, it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
And so we started a consulting company called the Poor Group, and
What was it called?
like pour, P-O-U-R. I know, not the
Poor
best.
group. Okay. Got it. Yeah, it's okay. It's fine.
You
It's
know,
fine.
so-
Names are whatever.
Well, not really. Not really. You know, like balls, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that's an actual restaurant name. This is like a consulting. You don't have to market the name of the consulting group.
That's true. But yeah, like we were doing that, and honestly, we actually were pretty successful. Like we had a lot of clients. We not only like in doing beverage programs, but also had a lot of like liquor brands that we were bringing in and helping them find distribution and launch in the U.S. So we had mezcals from Mexico. We had a gin and a vodka from Spain, a tonic water from Spain. So we were like, it was honestly a blast.
Sounds like fun. Yeah.
Because I was traveling across the U.S. throwing parties.
Ooh.
You know, like
Who doesn't
love
like
the
a good
parties.
party? You like a
Exactly.
party,
I
right?
like a party.
Yeah.
You know, so organizing, throwing parties, finding distribution, cutting deals. So it was like I was doing the beverage thing. That like I used my skill set a lot. I was traveling a lot, which I enjoyed
Yeah.
at the time. You know, my younger self. And
Now you're a mama.
yeah. Now I'm
Traveling
tired.
is not happening right now.
Now I'm tired. So yeah, it was a fun time, and then okay, let's open a bar.
Yeah.
That was actually
That was the precipice of it. Just let's open a bar.
let's open a bar,
Yeah.
and we were looking for a space.
What year is this? This is pre-COVID.
Yeah, this is 2015.
2015. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't realize Colada. Was this Colada?
Colada opened 2016.
2016. Okay.
Yeah. So in 2015, we were like, okay, let's open a bar. So we started looking for spaces. So Colada is not a bar, but that we were. This is how it went. We were looking for a space, and this is when like speakeasies were starting to be like
Yeah.
a thing.
A thing.
And we were 14th. Colada's 14th Street location is the basement of that building was where we were planning on putting our Cuban speakeasy bar that we were going to call La Obra. And then we were like, well, we need a cover up for the speakeasy.
Yeah.
And that's where Colada came about.
Ooh.
Funny enough. So
It's so funny how things happen.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go into one thing, Jason, sometimes, and it's just like something else comes
Yeah.
out of it. Those are sometimes the best things that happen.
yeah,
to
it
be
wasn't.
honest.
It wasn't like it was again. It was kind of like so. I was like, well, the bar is Cuban. We were focusing on Prohibition era cocktails and the whole glory. So I'm like, well, I personally can't wait to land in Miami and have my cortadito or my colada.
Totally.
My God, I miss those flavors so much, and kind of like worked on putting together literally basically what was meant to be a functioning business, but still the cover up.
Yeah.
And obviously it was very, very small. If you've ever been to our 14th Street location, you can literally see how it was kind of like, at this point, this is like its fourth reiteration. Like we've expanded. Like it was tiny.
Yeah.
Tiny. We were like, well, let's get this open while we are like working on construction, get some money going. And then we had like, a line down the block. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this is something different, and I started really thinking, well, this is something we can grow and expand and replicate. And the business side of me, I'm like, I know bars have a short time
lifespan.
frame.
Yeah.
so
Especially speakeasies.
Exactly.
I opened one maybe around the same time as you. It's called the Shepherd.
Okay, yeah, I remember.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, in true speakeasy form, 3 years we were done.
Yeah, so they have a short lifespan.
Made zero money.
And I, ultimately really felt that it was a better business decision, right?
Yeah.
So then we started, kind of Colada started taking more form, and the bar kind of became history. We never really, it became more like, how do we actually expand Colada Shop, and kind of forgot.
Yeah. Well, tell people what Colada Shop is, like, so they understand. For those who haven't gone, because I go all the time. I go to Mosaic. I was at Clarendon. At Clarendon, I picked up plantains because I got challenged here to make a Cuban style pizza.
Ooh.
So
Okay.
you're gonna have to take a bite. This pizza is for you,
Okay.
so you can take it home. So you don't, but please take. There's plates around right over here. Jake, can you help her with a plate there?
I need to.
You had what? Take a picture? Is that what you're doing?
I'm gonna take a photo.
This might end up on the menu. I don't know. It depends on what you say. But what I figured is I saw the sofrito hot sauce.
Yeah.
By the way, I love that idea. Is that a thing? Sofrito hot sauce, or is that your thing?
We made it a thing. Yeah.
You made it a thing. I think that's brilliant, right? Just like because I love sofrito. Most of the time, a sofrito is on like what, a paella, right?
Yeah.
Right, for instance.
Well, it's honestly like it's a mother sauce.
It's a mother sauce.
It's a mother sauce.
It is a mother sauce.
Yeah, especially in Latin America, it is our mother sauce.
Oh wow! I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, I like to see. I'm into that. I made sofrito my entire life because I worked in a fine dining Spanish restaurant.
Yeah.
My parents.
It is definitely the key component of a paella.
Of a paella, yeah. But you made this into a hot sauce.
Yeah.
So is it the peppers, tomatoes?
Yeah, it has different peppers. And Cuban food is not traditionally spicy. There's
Sure.
not a very little spice component, and our hot sauce is very, I would say, mild within the spectrum because it's more like to add depth of flavor.
Got it.
But yeah, it's really a lot of onion, garlic, different peppers, tomato, and you kind of get a little bit of that sweetness and oregano too.
So what I did for you, chef? Okay.
I'm excited.
Can I call you chef? Do you like that? It's fine. Chef, entrepreneur. No.
Sure, whatever. I'm fine with it, but these days I'm more on the business side. But
Listen,
what?
you and me, we're both on. We took our chef coats off at the event.
You did.
Yeah, remember? I saw you. I saw you look at me. I saw you look at me, and you're like,
let's get this
we
on.
were at an event, and I'm like, I'm not really cooking these days, so why am I going to fake like I'm cooking? I'm like, the chef coat's a thing of the past for me. I do put them on for events every once in a while here and there if I'm actually cooking, but at an event like that, I'm socializing, right? Yeah. So I thought that was funny.
I do cook at events once in a while.
Well, me too, yeah.
But it is the once in a blue moon type of scenario. It's not my day to day at all.
Yeah. So it's funny how we were both having that feeling there.
I remember we looked at. I'm like, okay.
I'm gonna give you a piece. Is that cool? Do you mind if I grab it for you?
Please.
Okay. So what I did here, and by the way, Jason emailed me this at like 9:20 at night last night, or at least that's when I read the email. So that's why I went to the Colada Shop this morning. So what I have here is a sofrito tomato sauce. So we have peppers and onions in the tomato sauce. Obviously, that's what we put on the bottom. Then I looked up and I looked up like, does Cuban pizza exist? And actually it does. It does. And in a couple different versions. Maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's a lot of Gouda implemented in Cuban pizza. The other thing I read is that they like the burnt cheese on the crust. So I cheesed the crust a little bit to get some of that. Yeah. So you can see right there, there's a little of that burnt cheese flavor there. And then I got some chorizo. Is chorizo, chorizo, right? Spicy chorizo. I got a little bit of plantains there. And then instead of like basil or anything like that, I use oregano because oregano is pretty prevalent in the cuisine, right? I also bought a pack of plantain chips to crumble over on top of this for extra texture, but I forgot them at the pizzeria. So I was like, you know what? There's no plantain chips on this one. But so far, tell me.
It is delicious.
Is it?
It is.
Yeah.
I'm really a sucker for that sweet salty. So I love the chorizo kick with the sweet plantains.
There you go. You don't have to. By the way, people have been on this show and said the pizza sucks. So
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Victor Albisu. What does he know? He says you can't cook prosciutto, which I agree with him. It was Jason's fault.
He was a little buzzed at that point.
He was a little. He did bring some tequila in to drink on the podcast. But so
I thought about bringing cocktails. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my God, you should. Well, listen. We love to have you, obviously, to come back and talk more, and maybe this time you'll bring cocktails, Colada cocktails, or
I always
whatever.
get the bags.
Oh, the pouches.
The pouches, yeah.
What are those?
There's mojito, pina colada. Is there a third? What's the third one? I think you guys have.
Well, we
rotate
make them all now in pouches. So they're basically little Capri Sun packs with all of our cocktails. So
decent size.
Yeah, and you can walk out with them and drink them.
Yeah. So depending on where you are.
Yeah.
Different jurisdictions, but actually a lot of our locations you can walk around. So like our Clarendon has a sip and stroll, same as Mosaic.
Yeah.
And then
Oh yeah,
you know,
Mosaic
just-
has it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun spot.
So you can walk around and, have your little Capri Sun of happiness.
Oh my
So-
God.
Do you like it?
I just said, can I get that napkin right there?
Yeah, you got it here.
My new shirt for a
no.
food fight.
A little bit.
I heard there's somebody competing in food fight from your
Oh,
team
yeah.
this year.
Chef Jova. She's amazing.
Listen, I take bribes right now. You know I host the food fight, right?
Yeah,
so,
you
so I can. Are you
I would
attending?
represent- I am.
Oh, good.
I better be. Yeah, I need to support my girl. She's amazing.
How come you're not on stage with us? Are we going to bring you up? Should we bring you up? I'm going to talk to them here. We should bring
Okay.
you up to the panel or something like
Let's
that.
do it.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that be kind of a conflict of interest? Just saying.
Yeah, exactly. It's DC.
You know.
This is the city of
Everything-
conflict of
exactly,
interest.
Everything is a conflict, right?
But
Yeah. Would
so
love
tell us a little bit more about Colada. I mean, you're
So Colada is an all-day Cuban restaurant.
Yeah.
We do coffee. We do food, obviously, which we kind of like call our 4 C's. So coffee, cooking, cocktails, and Cubanism. That's more kind of referring Latin hospitality. I allude to that a little bit when I was telling you I don't like to make people feel uncomfortable. There was a point. I would say that going to a lot of coffee shops made me feel very uncomfortable. Because it started to, kind of like the wine thing. I feel like coffee went through this era of like third wave. I'm gonna teach you and be super snobby, and I'm like, can I just get a good cup of coffee that makes me feel good with a smile? That's all I want to know right now. I haven't woken up yet, so
Yeah.
I don't need a full class here. So that's what we do. So we're open all day. We have happy hour every day. 4 to 8.
Yes.
So like pretty long happy hour. Why? Because the party shouldn't end.
I love that. I love that.
And we have a lot of cocktails, and we have a lot of coffee. We have a lot of food. We do have a couple of our locations. Our original location, which I told you, is tiny,
Yeah.
right? Even though we've expanded it, the menu is smaller, same as in our mosaic, just because it's smaller locations. But we serve, obviously Cuban sandwiches, a lot of empanadas, croquetas,
the Cuban sandwich.
sopa vieja.
So I eat the Cuban sandwiches at least once a week, and then my wife eats the cauliflower Cuban.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Right? Is it the
Yeah.
cauliflower?
Yeah, so we have like a romesco. It's like a nutless romesco.
Oh, it's romesco
Yeah,
cauliflower,
and
okay.
then we have mojo mushroom.
Yeah.
And that we kind of
Oh, that's what it-
meatiness.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so melty. My son loves it. We love the empanadas. I mean, it's always a stop for me when I go to Mosaic. I'm always at your shop, and the service is fantastic too. You got great people working for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I love the window that you can just walk.
Ventanita,
Yeah.
yeah.
What is it?
A ventanita.
La ventanita
Yeah.
es precioso. Or I don't even know what I said, but precious. I said precious.
Sort of.
Sort of, okay.
But it's okay. It's okay.
So you how many locations do you have now?
We have 7.
So how are you? So you're juggling 7 locations.
Yeah.
You're a new mom.
Newish.
Newish?
He has 2.
2? Yeah, I consider that still fresh.
Yeah, yeah.
Still, yeah.
Feels fresh.
Yeah, I mean, my kid's 8, and I'm like just becoming a dad now.
Yeah. It took me a while to
Yeah.
like, am I really a mom? Like, it took me a long time. I kind of felt like, okay, I'm gonna push this baby out, and all of a sudden I'm gonna feel like a mom. Like, it was a moment there. I'm like, didn't really sink in for a minute.
I'm sure it doesn't sink it. It takes much longer for it to sing it for
them.
fathers.
Yeah,
so
I can
I hear that for sure. The and then you do a lot of work apart from your entrepreneurship and being a mom. What are some of the stuff? I want to give you the opportunity to talk about the things that you're passionate about that aren't exactly work.
Yeah, well, I am very passionate about, I guess, 2 things that are currently on the ballot, I would say.
Yes.
Women's rights and immigrants
Yeah.
and immigration. And, both of those things are so important and also like backbone of our industry.
Yeah.
I think for me, these issues were really highlighted during the pandemic. And when, you saw so many of our hospitality industry workers that were literally considered essential workers but had no rights, they had no protections. And we're very much in a disadvantaged state. And, these are people paying taxes. That's a reality. These are people contributing to the economy. Again, considered essential workers. Picking your food, it's not only restaurants. To me, it's the whole, food systems ecosystem, right? Like, who do you think is working in food processing plants, poultry processing plants, picking your fruits that then are nicely packaged in Whole Foods? So, our food system is really led by immigrants, right?
Supported wholeheartedly by immigrants. Like we could not do it without immigrants.
And that's just facts. It's not my opinion. That's just really facts, right? To the point that you have special visas because we cannot find people currently within the states to go and pick our fruits and our foods, right? Like, if not, they will rot on the trees and the plants, right? So that's just a reality.
So wait, just real quick on that. So what are your hopes for immigration? Like, what do you think we're not doing correctly right now?
For me, my hopes with immigration is to find a path for legal status.
Yes.
I would love to say a path to citizenship, and that's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
I think just being able to get fundamental and basic human rights for the people that are feeding us is my hope.
Like a resident, like me.
A resident,
Basically.
or again,
I'm not a citizen. I'm not a citizen of America, guys.
Or even, again, some sort of you're here, not that you're gonna come. ICE is gonna come and deport you, right?
Sure.
Like, it just not even a resident potentially. Some sort of just
Something,
being legal.
yeah.
That you're not afraid to go into a hospital because you feel sick because you're gonna get deported.
Yeah.
Like,
or afraid to apply for a job.
Apply for a job,
Yeah.
or open a bank account. Like, there's just so many things.
Yeah.
That, again, from health to, it's just, it affects them in so many ways.
Definitely.
Just not
Childcare.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just the constant fear, it just really deters you,
Yeah.
right?
It's kind of crazy that most kitchen workers that happen to be immigrants have to work maybe 2-3 jobs to afford childcare. And barely scrape it. I mean, it's a huge problem. Like, these people should, and the mental health that is taxing on these individuals that are working these 2 to 3 jobs to just be able to afford a little bit of childcare. There's something really broken with the system.
Very broken.
They should be working one job that they're happy at. Again, you could work 2 jobs. I'm not saying don't work 2 jobs, but they should at least have an employer that they feel that they're being supported by. They should have help with childcare, right? There should be some type of laws like for immigrants on some support in childcare system, because it's like, what are you working what time do you get to spend with your family and nurture your family if you're constantly working jobs and to support to have childcare? When do you get the chance to be a family member?
They rarely do.
Yeah.
Most of their time is just trying to get some food on the table and a place to sleep.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I'm saying. It's just, again, the most basic of human rights. That's my goal. And I think that comes with, again, having, for these very hardworking people that are paying taxes and contributing to the economy, that, most of them are not getting paid under the table. Again, they're in the system. It's just not how you want them to be, but they're in the system and contributing to the system to have protections, because then that allows them to, if something is not going their way, to be able to speak up, to be able to, again, go to a hospital if they don't feel well, to, if they're in an abusive relationship, to be able to call the police. None of these things they can do. So that's one of the things that I feel very passionate about. And then I think being a woman within this industry has also been very challenging. And we're seeing such a lack of women in leadership roles, despite being incredibly talented. And a lot of the issues stem from childcare, right? And this is not necessarily only particular to the hospitality industry, but America has a serious issue with childcare, right? That the cost, especially within this area, is actually the most expensive in the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it can represent like 90% of a single mother's income. You know, how do you advance with that? You know,
you can't. You're kind of strapped.
You have to make
Yeah.
a choice, and that choice then ultimately takes a huge toll on careers. And I think it's something that really needs to be changed. And we depend on women, not only, again, and to be in the workforce. And I think that became super apparent when, you know, over 2 million women had to exit the workforce during the pandemic because there was no childcare, period. And guess what? We had no one to work in our restaurants, and we had no one to work, period. You know, we were all scrambling. So
Yeah.
it became, you know, we have to fix this childcare issue, not only to get equal pay, to have them be able to contribute and advance equally, you know, compared to their spouses even, or male counterparts, and, you know, just ultimately keep women going forward.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I was raised by women. You know my sister. I think you know my mother. They're both kick-ass entrepreneurs. They balance being a wife. They balance being a mother. They balance being kick-ass entrepreneurs, and it's not easy. It's not easy for them. So, I mean, I'm all for that. So what organizations are you working with that are helping you push some of this agenda? And yeah.
So the James Beard Women in Leadership Program, regarding her, are two of the organizations that, you know, like kind of this agenda. But I've also worked in doing a fellowship with American University's Culinary Institute, specifically on the intersection of immigration and food systems.
Yeah.
So, like, honestly, anywhere that will listen,
Yeah.
I'm trying to plug in through different channels, and ultimately, hopefully, get some policy to shift.
Yeah. Do you think businesses like restaurants or what have you, do you think there is, you know, because I know we do it, and so, you know, I have this iced tea company, which you know of. I hope you got the package.
Yes, delicious.
But we really force ourselves to, you know, and we have an HR department. We force ourselves to take applications from women. We try to do, like, I don't know, 75% applicants we want coming in are from women that we'll look at. Maybe they're African American, or, you know, or you know, any different ethnicity. But it really starts at the workplace that you have to want to do. You have to, like, it's not like it's just gonna.
No.
It's not like it's just gonna come out of nowhere. You literally have to make a concerned decision of, this is the way we're gonna hire people for our organization. I think we need more of that. Wouldn't you agree? Like
100%.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be intentional.
Intentional. That's what I was looking for. Intentional.
You also have to know what you're looking for in a resume. And actually, I'll say this, like, because I get super frustrated when I'm actually hiring, and then it's like I'm trying to get the women's like applications, and it's like literally I get 1 over 100 men. I'm not joking, like, especially
Sure.
for like high leadership
Yeah.
positions,
Yeah.
right? I think it's simply a confidence level. You've been told no, you can't your entire life,
Yeah.
right? But you also haven't then gotten the opportunity in your previous job, so you don't necessarily feel like you're prepared for that role. And women and men think very differently, right? Women want to be at 100% before they, like, I can do this. No offense, but men are more like, I'm at 50, I'll fake it till I make it.
No
Let's go.
offense taken. Fake it till you make it is part of my strategy in life. But yeah.
So I actually advocate a lot this to women. I'm like, no, like, when you're at 50%, you're like at 110, girl. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's also changing that narrative, and also looking at resumes potentially a little bit differently, that they might not have had the same experience.
But it's also, fake it till you make it is not the best term for what's actually happening, because what you did was, maybe you were in a position that you felt that wasn't, like, you weren't experienced enough to do, but you didn't fake it.
No.
You got to work. You rolled up your sleeves. You're like, I'm going to figure this shit out.
Yeah.
And I don't know it all, but I'm going to figure it out.
Exactly.
And I'm going to do it. Right.
Yeah, but I think men, to their advantage, have that confidence to be like, yeah, I got this,
Yeah.
right? And, like, women just want to be sure. Like,
Sure, yeah.
It's just that different way of processing. It's both can make it,
Yeah.
right? It's just kind of like, again, I think there just has to be a change in letting women like, no, go apply. Let's start with that piece,
Yeah.
right? Of just go apply, right? Like, and just because someone else hasn't given you the opportunity doesn't mean that you can't.
Right.
Like what, you know, and I think it starts even there in trying to change how we hire, because again, I struggle with even being incredibly intentional of who we hire, and you know, leaning primarily to females and people of color. It is hard. It is hard to just even get that application in.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's whoever's listening here, if you're a woman, you know, and you think you are 50%, go and apply for the job that you know you can do, or you will figure out how to do. Because, you know, as you mentioned with, you know, your sister and your mom, we master multitasking like
Big time.
Tomorrow, right?
Big time.
Like, you know, there's pros and cons that come with everything, but you know, if anything that being a mother teaches you is to like multitask like there's no tomorrow, and getting things done and organize a million things and somehow getting through the end of the day.
Yeah, and also like, you know, nurture your workforce, right? Like I think like one of the things I you know, I've always said about women is like you know, to me, a woman chef sometimes is, to me, are better or more talented and more capable than men chef, because we're, like you said, we're just trying to get to the men are trying to get to the end point so much, where I think women take a step back and they're a little bit more thoughtful about it. So that, to me, sometimes they make the best chefs, like in my opinion. I mean, listen, I have a mother that's a chef. I have my sister that's in the industry. I mean, really, the Sunnyside group is a women, you know, I'm part of it, but it's very women driven, right? We have women chefs. We have, you know, women HR. We have lots of people a lot of women that are doing fantastic work there. So
and don't get me wrong, you know, men have a place in this equation, 100%.
Yeah.
Everyone does. It's just again, being able to have that equal opportunity.
We got to balance it a little bit better. And do you think we've made some strides in the last 5-10 years? Like, do you feel like it's been happening a little bit, or you think COVID kicked us in the ass and put us back a little bit, or?
I think a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I do think we've made some strides.
Yeah.
You know, I think one of the things that you asked me in the beginning, kind of like, how did I adapt to like going on CIA? And like, one of the things that was a shock to me at that time actually was how kind of like catty woman aspect like that I felt here. You know, coming from a place where like I was always surrounded by strong women that supported each other. And I think that took me a minute to kind of understand here, because I didn't understand where it was coming from, right? And it was coming from the place that women had one seat at the table. So then it always became a competition.
Yeah.
You know, so I think women have 100% shifted and start supporting each other. And that's really where the biggest difference that I have seen in the last few years is that support that we need to uplift each other rather than see each other as competition. And that there is more than one seat.
By the way, you give me goosebumps, because I think that's a key point. I think it needs to be less competitive and a lot more about supporting each other. You're part of the women's groups as well with my sister, I think, right? Yeah. Is that the James Beard?
Yeah, well, regarding her, well, she's also part of.
She does so much. It's hard for me to keep up. I'm like, yeah. She wanted to be here, by the way. She loves you.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm saying I have to text you back, but yes.
It's all right. Don't text her back. She does. Listen, you're my guest today. But I just want to be conscious. How many are we at time? Like, I know you have a hard out.
I think she's like 1 minute.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, the timing was great. I mean, listen, is there anything else you want to put out there for the world to know? I mean, like, I don't know if the world's listening to this podcast, but we are going to have some listeners. What? Lots of listeners. We haven't launched yet, but we are launching yet. But I don't know. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to cover?
You know, I think support your restaurants, your local restaurants. There's a lot of hard work that goes behind the scenes. It's not just, the food that you buy in the supermarket and shifting it over. We're, providing experiences. We're feeding families. We're supporting communities.
That's right.
And it's a tough time for restaurants right now. It really is. It's, we're navigating a lot of change in the last few years. And, at this point, COVID really actually seems like an easy time compared to right now.
Yeah.
So
I hear that. And I'll support that exactly. I mean, I think what people don't realize about the restaurant industry is that most of the workers, it's really the people driving the industry, it's a lifestyle for us. It's like it's a give back moment. Like we're involving our communities. We have our employees. It's not just a job, right? Like it's so much more. So yes, get out there, support your restaurants, and go out and eat. I mean, you don't have to go out and eat every day because I know it's expensive, right? And you want to cook it, and you want to cook at home as well. I mean, I love cooking at home. I'm sure you like cooking at home too. But yeah, we do need your support. It's a crucial time for our industry right now. We're losing employees like you don't even know, to Amazon, to these big, huge monopolized companies that, are outpaying us, right? We can't keep up with the pay. But listen, it was a pleasure, Daniella, to have you on. Oh, Jason, I forgot. Yeah, Jason, throw a question.
So outside of the DMV, where's your dream location for Colada Shop? If you're going to expand outside.
Ooh.
And it could be anywhere, United States or...
I'm looking south right now. South of within the U.S. So...
Like Florida south? Is that what you're saying?
Texas
not
south?
Florida. Maybe Texas. Maybe Tennessee.
Oh.
Ooh.
Like Nashville?
Yeah. So, I think that's kind of like that's where we're looking. We haven't made any decisions yet, but that's down the line.
We've got the second guest, Spike. Just bring up Tennessee. Didn't Victor bring up Tennessee?
Tennessee's hot. I mean, listen,
Nashville's hot right now.
Nashville's hot.
Yeah.
There's, it's wide open out there, the landscape for restaurants. I mean, the notion used to be you have to be in big cities to make a living here. That's not true anymore. You can.
Well, what's a big city? Nashville right now has 100 people moving there a day. They have I think year over year right now 4% growth, which is pretty huge. You have, come on, half of New York migrated to Florida and down.
Yeah.
So
in Texas.
Exactly, in Texas. So it's shifting. While we, our previous large cities have relocated.
Yeah.
They also want, also the diverse foods that they were used to. That's the other thing. Because you had so many people moving from these large cities down south, they're also looking for different foods that they were used to getting. So, yeah.
Listen, I have loved having you on this podcast. Again, I think I learned so many more things about you. It's very impressive on how you've become you. Doing what you were doing at 14 years old, running a business, paying, affording your culinary school, and then just going after working for some of the best chefs, and just ending up in the place you are. It's a lot of hard work, more work than most men have to do. You have to do kind of, as a woman in this industry, you have to work 10 times harder to get this, maybe the same accomplishments, right?
Yeah. Well, there's one little fact that I'm just gonna throw.
Please.
Because I also love to share this to whoever will listen. That women get less than 2% of the funding out there compared to male counterparts. 2%.
That's right.
That's mind blowing. So being a woman entrepreneur and actually being able to grow and expand a business is very, very hard.
This is true. And guys, if you're listening and you're looking to
let's make some change, to
get some investment somewhere, put your money to good work, invest in women. Invest in women entrepreneurs. They will get you the returns that males cannot get you. We'll just throw it out there, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's a serious thing. I'm not joking though. We need much more investment in women entrepreneurship. So I hope whoever's listening and looking to make some investment is figure it out. So guys, thank you everyone for joining us on this captivating episode of the In the Weeds. Our guest, Chef Daniella Senior. Learn more about Daniella at Colada Shop at coladashop.com. A special shout out to our fantastic sponsor, Open Water, Just Iced Tea, and We the Pizza. More ocean, less plastic. If you haven't tried Open Water, it's time to drink, hydrate, and drink up. Visit drinkopenwater.com to learn more and find local dining locations, retailers to pick up a bottle. Discover the refreshing taste of Just Iced Tea at eatthechange.com and satisfy your pizza cravings with We the Pizza at wethepizza.com. You won't regret it. And a huge thank you to our broadcast home, DC Central Kitchen, for their unwavering support. They're not just serving up food, they're serving up real change. Learn more and get involved at dccentralkitchen.org. To catch up on past episodes or subscribe to future ones, head over to the In the Weeds Pod, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. The kitchen may be closed for now, but the conversation never stops. We are 86 for now. Until next time.